A Zoom session with my genius ladies. So I'm switching from computer to phone. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of background information, and I printed these out, mirror image, so that you can read this. Good. You can read this, right? It's so tricky because on Zoom actually you're not able to read this. So this is what I envision as our soul sanctuary. Most of us have very little idea of what that is. And when we're born, we're born in the concrete world and have maybe a little bit of an inkling of other dimensions, of some of the mystery in life, but pretty much are conditioned to survive and do well in the concrete world. And so when you start meditating or trying to make sense of what's happening, or maybe even have an inner sense of a sanctuary, I do that too actually. We start with the sanctuary being sort of in this heart center where you're connecting to your own inner source and the source all around you. What can happen is that it remains sort of a separate idea, rather than what really needs to happen is that sanctuary inside of you needs to be connected with this bigger and more expansive way of viewing the world. And so what spirit guides do, or even elemental guides, is what I start with, because that is so essential and accessible for most people, is that it starts allowing us to become more aware of these outer dimensions. And it is quite a complex model. The other dimensions could be subtle realms, or could be younger selves, not part of the concrete world, could be ancestral influences, could be even awareness of societal structures and institutions that we're embedded in. Okay, so it's quite complex. And what this means is it's often through pain, through a disconnect from parts of ourselves that feel maybe oppressed or not heard or honored in these outer dimensions. There's pain and tension that comes through to alert us of what else is out there, wants us to heal it, and wants us to relate differently to these circles, people, institutions, and whatnot. Okay, and so spirit guides are often also antidotes that sort of help give us clarity and pushback. Okay, so hopefully this model will help to contextualize how these spirit guides that appear to my client in just 3 sessions already shifted so much for her. So what needs to happen to us to be open to this and to expand our sanctuary that's in our heart, our truth, into our circles is, what are the circles again? So the circles could be many things. It could be, as you might learn in sociology, could be your family context, all the different influences that socialize and condition us. Could be your school, could be your community, could be race, class, gender, all these different things that are not so concrete and tangible, but they could also be influences such as a past life or an ancestor, or all these mysterious things that are coming through and that we are called to heal. So it is not such a flat 2D model. It's that mystery and that very complex aspect of multidimensionality that we're a part of, right? But we try to succeed and just survive and function and get our raises and promotions in this little circle. Most of the self-blame and the pain that my clients experience are in some way related to, why can I mold better? Why do I have these symptoms? Why do I feel sad? Why do I feel mad? And, taking it maybe to an even more personalized level. What's wrong with me? I have whatever disorder that makes me weak, broken, just the problem. Rather than, how can I trust these symptoms, these imbalances that are making my body, my heart, my mind ache, because they are wisdom. They're trying to communicate to me how I need to expand and clear these imbalances from all the different fields that I'm a part of, that I'm relating to, that's in my body, but it could also be even that are my callings as my influence expands. So this is quite complex, right, to start with. And that's why I don't work with just anybody. I, for some reason, attract people who were these wise children and old souls and lost track of themselves and find themselves again, and start working with me. So with a brand new client, I've been talking maybe only 10 minutes. It takes only a few minutes to explain this and say what we're going to do is find out how in this sanctuary your mind can partner better, more with a tree guide, a central all-encompassing tree, a mythical sacred tree that reaches as much up as down into the light and dark, seen and unseen, all the polarities. Also grows in cycles and spirals, grows in terms of linear, so it holds all these dualities with a lot of wisdom and has a lot of teaching. So we start with the tree, and then we start invoking and inviting guides from each of these directions. And what these directions and guides are about, they really get to the heart of the issue. I'm going to post this. I'm sorry, I can't see so clearly on the phone what's showing or not, but this is meant to be in front of you. So this is your air and wisdom mental guides. So these guides help with wherever your mind might need more spaciousness, greater insight, the highest truth, more creative solutions to the usual narratives. Then to the right of you is where the sun comes up, is fire. And these guides help with your passion and your vitality protection, which, like a fever, is huge in telling us when we're being invaded and how to push that energy back out. In the back is earth, and earth helps with grounding and your ability to materialize and manifest all that you're realigning and realizing into not just your body, but into your everyday actions and your assertions and your relationships. So a whole big paradigm shift happens. And then water is the emotional to the left, helps with the cleansing, clearing, and soothing to make this process easier, also nourishing you. So just a quick overview of this model, help this client get what we're doing and be on board with it. So in her particular situation, this is her history. She has some experience with meditation, but has never worked with guides. She's a doctoral student, and her main issues were that the earth is on top and the air. Okay, so this is just the diagram. It's meant to be in front, and I just couldn't draw it up front. Earth is in back, has your back, and air is in front, helps you face your truth. And to the right is fire, and to the left is water. So it's kind of a 3D model. It's based on the 7 directions and all that wisdom, also about as above, so below. So it's up, down, front, back, left and right, and heart is the center, where the your sacred heart is most aligned and reliable when you have guides from each of the directions or the elements balancing and being in an interdependent relationship with one another. So I'll explain how that works and why we start with the truth, then with the realignment of fire, then you ground it, and then you clear it, just like, you know, the rivers and having strong riverbeds, right? That energy becomes stronger and stronger the more grounded you are. So to now put it in a practical situation. So my client is a doctoral student and working on her prospectus, and her main issue or concern was that she shrinks so much. She has dealt with anxiety and panic her whole life. She's an African American woman, grew up in mostly white community, and felt very alone and endangered even starting at age 6. So there's some deeper roots to this, but we didn't even go much into that. We focused on her current situation, which is what she wanted. So she has occasional panic and depression. She also struggled with body image issues and low self-worth that bring her down, and an anxiety on the side seemed a bit peripheral to her and out of reach in terms of not having the resources, the energy to even deal with that, were financial issues. And having a side business where she could make some money right now, but felt like there's just no way, no how I will be able to even do that. So she had gone to a shamanic healer in the past. And so my model will reveal a bit how work done with a traditional shaman can, not always needs to, but where you can run into sort of a ceiling effect or some trouble where the work starts falling flat after a while because the mind is not fully engaged and integrated. So let me now pull up some of the guys she's worked with. So when she worked with this shaman, he had connected with a past life of hers, and in this process she's just basically lying still and he does the work. And he had pulled in 4 guides for her. So I believe he had connected with the wolf, the tiger, a boar, and a dolphin. And so these had meaning to her. And interestingly enough, oh wait, that was the wrong one. Here, this is how they fell on that spectrum. So she had 1 in each. I believe she had the hummingbird also, yeah. So what the lessons, the shifts of the lessons that she experienced from them were profound, but she wasn't able to take them to the level where we took them now. So with the tiger, for example, she knew that she needed to become fiercer and embody that energy more. But when we tuned into the meditation, which basically just means going into your sanctuary in your heart, going into the inner scape where all the elements are present, a natural escape where your true nature is connected with the field of nature, and then connecting to a central, mythical, all-encompassing tree, which for her was a redwood. So when we started connecting to these guides, where she connected to them, she said the tiger was a baby tiger because, and this was years ago, since she connected and had met with the shaman. So the tiger had not grown, and it was a baby tiger at this point. And she knew it had to do with fierceness, but it felt like a little boost of energy, but she had not taken it much further because her mind was still very afraid of being fears or shifting that relationship she had with her mentors because of all the self-criticism and things she was saying to herself. In terms of the hummingbird, the hummingbird was bringing her some joy and was there to help clear her throat, but she was not able yet to speak, especially not in these difficult situations. The boar guide and the wolf guide were also giving her big teachings. The wolf had shown her that it was okay to separate from the pack, to be more of herself, and the boar the same, even wanting to encourage her to be a little bit more reckless and embodied, not so concerned about other people. So that made all intuitive sense, but it's just hard to really make that paradigm shift and integrate it on all those levels. Dolphin, similarly, was teaching her to be more playful. So what happens when we go in soul sanctuary and we take it one step at a time and really cover all those bases, which also are the mental, physical, emotional, and energetic levels? So she started actually with a new guide, and this guide was a Buddha guide. So the Buddha guide, if you remember maybe my post about basket weaving, this will make a lot of sense. And also this idea of the as above, so below. The Buddha guide was really showing her how much her mind was attached to good and bad and certain outcomes. And so if there was a goal, sort of that idea of an arrow, and it was not surrounded by wisdom or non-attachment or these intentions that were aligned with our higher truth and highest self, all of these goals were very fear-driven and bound to fall flat or backfire, because consciousness is just interested in helping us become more conscious, become better basket weavers, right? So she had this insight that, and also with the tree guide and meditation, that her mind needed to really take a few steps back and partner more, and that became much clearer in a meditation where she is involved, and the guides are not just sort of given to her. They were great guides. They are great guides. We're working with some of them, but they need to go deeper and show her ego mind how to unravel some of the conditioning, and eventually we'll even do some soul retrievals if some of these patterns remain stuck. But for now, we're just doing what is called power retrievals, which is nourishing the soul and nourishing the mind and nourishing the being, the self, with wisdom that we often don't get in this society, right? So I hope everybody's following so far. If you have questions, just put them there. I'll respond and read them. So trusting this experience, that's the thing. Experiencing in the body, experience the truth of the Buddha, telling her it is okay. What you think is safe might not necessarily be safe. And the ego mind needs to see that. The ego mind thinks, oh, shrinking and not avoiding all this and not upsetting a mentor is safe. Ego, that's the ego, right? Trying to avoid whatever could be painful, such as rejection, which she experienced. Her wisdom is saying that's not safe. That's holding you back. You have so much potential. You need to go into, like protecting your work, standing in your truth, and being fierce about that. So having that insight was great. And so when she started to then look at her little tiger guide, she was surprised that the tiger had already grown into an adolescent. And we worked a little bit with the energy of what it would mean to embody, to really take in the lessons of this tiger guide, not on a mental level of you need to be more fierce, but if you really expand it and felt that fierceness, what would that look like? So she would say a few statements, or we would visualize when she shrank, for example, maybe when she received an email or whatever happened. And with the guide by her side and that fierceness, practicing it in her body in a meditation through the breathing, her inflections, her voice, her energy would shift. She would become more grounded, a bit like her voice also, with the help of that hummingbird who cleared things. She would sound clearer, and you could feel that conviction where she would suddenly then start saying, yeah, they might have their opinion of it not being good enough, but this is what I believe in. I do believe it's good enough. I can stand behind it, and I need to get out of here. I need to graduate. I have work to do. And so she became much more focused. Now, with Wolf, the same. It helped with the separation, the idea of I can be my own person and part of the pack, and that's healthy and normal. I don't need to be afraid of being rejected and alone. I want to get, yeah, it's true. It's so true. And so many struggles happen in that confined space, and especially during the dissertation years. It's such a, I call it me search as well as research that so many of the students go through. So it's just wonderful to have some that want to do this deeper work and grow on so many levels, and they got so much to offer the world. She's in public health, and yeah, it's super exciting. So with Buffalo and these grounding guides, Buffalo took her to a base. She felt it all the way in her base level, and it was just standing. You know how they can just stand like statues, like so still, and she could just feel that. Yeah, she could feel that, and there's this energy, that centeredness. Me too, Linda, me too. All this work is thanks to the struggles in graduate school and healing and trusting. So much of this is trusting, right? I was in clinical psychology, so I diagnosed myself. She diagnosed herself. There's nothing wrong. I just shared with my ladies in Own Your Genius Zone to have names for what we go through. But the problem with all of that sometimes can be we over-identify with the symptoms and what we're going through, rather than understanding that it's a message. All that emotion is energy, emotion, and we are tasked to interpret that, not just for our own healing, but as we then assert and embody our wisdom ourselves, we ripple out to the world. We start exercising what we learned in our relationship with everything, and it eventually might even tune into a calling of who we need to lead in that sense. So yeah, then her water guides, dolphin and sea turtle, similarly helped her to just take it easy, go with the flow. What's interesting about these even tiny shifts is that she got greater insight that her goal and obsession, and we do this a lot, about, oh, I need to lose weight, I need to be perfect, I need to look such and such a way. She saw that also as this arrow. All the different goals that were not embedded in wisdom were not going to work. We're going to drop them eventually, or they fall flat because they're not in alignment with true consciousness. So she was able to unpack that all these ideas of how she needed to look and what her body needed to look like to gain self-worth were basically a lie, because she has self-worth just as it is. And if she moved in these outer circles, wanted to change her body, do all these things, eat differently or whatever it may be, from this place of self-worth, she's going to continue to be motivated and do it to stay in alignment, rather than doing it out of fear to be accepted. So let me see your question. Do your clients find their end of guides to work with you? Do they already know their guides? Are there set guides? for each element. No, there are no set guides. She is unusual in that she saw a shaman who got some guides for her. Some people meditate or feel like I've always had a guide or a sense of a connection with this kind of animal, or in my case, like I felt like my childhood, like imaginary friends like Anne Frank, Joan of Arc, Helen Keller were guides, and letting me know what to expect, preparing me already for my future. So most of us have guides. We might not necessarily call them that, but what happens most of the time in meditation is that guides open, as I open each of these portals and we just sit with it, that they appear. And it is a bit of an artificial structure. It's like these 4 pillars, so to speak, that I felt like our ego mind needed most of all to expand and make sure we covered all of our bases. So it's not like, oh, these guides, you know, in the world, you know, in the universe, they're organized by these 4 pillars. But I make sure we have, my clients have some in each area. And if not, we can just even work just with the elements to balance them out. But most likely we have guides in every dimension, every area, and they connect with them themselves. Sometimes the guides are more sensations or wisdom or telepathic communication that comes through. So hopefully that answers your question. In terms of set for each element, there are many systems, if you will, wisdom schools that have certain guides or archetypes for each of the elements, but it differs. It differs per culture, and it's not set at all. My teacher even believes it's more important for you to have a personal relationship with that guide and understand what the guide is trying to say to you, why that guide is bringing to you, rather than reading a book. The same with dreams, right? It could get a little stale and a little rigid. But that said, there is some of that collective unconsciousness that a lot of cultures have tapped in, particular animal guides or mythical guides, ancestral guides. There are so many different kinds of guides, ascended masters, and you could read that and it gives you a certain insight. So in terms of my particular client, what I also wanted to say, for her to break down that structure and see that her goal was misaligned, helped her to drop that whole thing altogether and set entirely new goals. It's not like, it completely alleviated, her sense of body image or low self-worth, but she had work to do and will probably continue to retrieve guides. Yes, angels, those are the mythical, the ascetic, earth, heavenly guides. There are all kinds of guides from other dimensions. There's guides who are like, or religious teachers, Jesus, Buddha, you name it. Living people who lived, who are living, who are no longer living, whatever the person feels a strong connection to, can become or can serve as a guide. So what also happened is that the guides helped organize the energy much better for her. And so as a result of that, her mind completely cleared and had, she was able to carve out 2 hours a week to attend to her business. Within 10 minutes, had a pitch of who she was going to approach and do some consulting work with, and felt very confident that there's no need why she couldn't go out and approach some of these people and offer her services and make some money on the side. So to me, it's just such an honor. I learn from the guides all the time, but what is so amazing is the guides know best. Like, it's, even though I've worked with thousands different guys, different people, you couldn't, if somebody asked me, how do you deal with this financial issue, a body image issue, and what would the guides say, or how would they resolve this issue? It's totally unique for each person what guide shows up, You know, for somebody it might be the elephant, and somebody might be the hummingbird, or anything in between. And they will teach you exactly what you need to know, what's in your blind spot, and shift the energy and rearrange things and create body shifts so that you can align again more with your tree. And yeah, you got to tune in with the tree. You got to tune into yourself with the tree. Clear that out. Another thing that I think the gods, and particularly the tree, does in the sanctuary is take the extra charge out. So much, I think, of our emotion and what's coming through is so overwhelming because we have ignored it and neglected so much. So it's sort of this push-pull and this double bind we're in, because when we listen, it's just, you know, we get flooded. By starting with the undermined and getting into the sanctuary and connecting with the tree, it can clear a lot of the extra, so we can just settle and feel in control, centered, and have these outer layers and what's coming in feel more like imprints, and unravel them one at a time. So let me know if you have more questions, even if you're not here today. If you're listening to the recording after the fact, just put the questions in the comments. Linda, do you have any more questions? Thank you for being there. The tree, yeah, the tree is like a filter. The tree can also help the ego mind just kind of, filter out or separate out to see what's our human aspect, what's the ancestral conditioning, and so on, without necessarily dismissing it. But maybe it feels like maybe dulling it a bit, the charge, or grounding. I mean, you know, that's what Earth is so good at, grounding the extra charge and leaving just what's needed in terms of consciousness to actually learn and rebalance and realign and teach others. So I'm super excited to enter the new phase, and thank you all for watching. I hope this was wonderful, the new phase. I'm going to share some other interviews and healing sessions. One is an audio recording as well with my student mentors, so there'd be different levels, more advanced, more beginning, and part of the reason, thank you so much, part of the reason why is to encourage more of these. Please ask me questions if you have questions, or if you want to get a taste of what this would be like. I offer individual sessions and also do in-person sessions, which I just had for Soul Sanctuary Alchemy, or the 9-month, which is really taking Soul Sanctuary to the I won't say extreme, but to the complete paradigm change, where you're embodying and having a full team, and you're shifting each of these circles that you're in, and your relationship with every aspect, from children to ancestors, from peers and friends to partners, so that you're doing your work and you're really clear that others are to do theirs. You're clear of your boundaries. That's some of the also the reasons why we might get imbalanced, how to hold imbalanced relationships or other people without feeling overwhelmed by them. So being separate and connected, doing our part, being influential. So should you be interested in that, just let me know, contact me personally. Otherwise, I am super honored and excited to share little nuggets here and there, whatever interests you, to help you along your journey, whatever you might be doing, your own healing work, your work with others. So hopefully this was helpful. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Namaste.